So hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Assetto Corsa Competizione video. We're back in Assetto Corsa. I've kind of had enough of Forza Motorsport. There's a lot of things that bother me with the game that I just find really annoying, especially in the rivals section, where in order to make a change to your setup you've got to really come all the way out and select a new rival and everything. It feels like a very long process just to make a small change on the car setups. So we're back in Forza, in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and I've got to be honest, it's good to be back. Coming between Forza and Assetto Corsa Competizione, obviously there's a lot of different reasons why you would use Forza if you're not wanting to enjoy full-on GT3 racing. And I don't know why you would want to race a standard car around a circuit instead of racing something that's designed to be on a circuit. I think for the majority of the cars, the normal road cars, it would have been nice to have seen the implementation of some proper roads on Forza Motorsport, although it's supposedly aimed at being a motorsport game, although the majority of the cars are just road cars. Obviously there's a lot of other cars in there, and whatever floats your boat really. I spent a lot of time trying to get the force feedback set up, and in all fairness it does feel pretty good. I'm not totally dissatisfied with Forza, but I think to get my fix on actual racing without it being stupid and all about adding mods to your car, and I think in the rivals section that I did take part in was at Catalonia in the R class and the S class, and I did reach a good rating, probably in the top 20, but in order to get faster I just couldn't understand what modifications to be making really, but as setting the car up, it's pretty much the same as most other games. But in this video I really wanted to focus on not necessarily just Monza, but we're going to look at the Porsche, we're going to look at the McLaren that's obviously smashing the leaderboards at the minute. The BOP is obviously way too high. We'll also take a quick look at the other Lamborghini Evo. So all these cars have managed to get into the 147s, although the McLaren is definitely much easier to maintain a 147 lap, and even getting very close to the 146s just in a normal session, which was really surprising. I think if I probably spent a little bit more time with the McLaren setup I'd probably be hit into the 146s, but I think Monza is one of those tracks that seems to feature in the multiplayer lobbies consistently at the top. It's always full, there's always a Monza lobby, and it's always good to take part in, if it's not a nightmare at turn 1. Obviously turn 1 can be a very tough battle. As you can see last night racing, again just in an online lobby, a really good battle with the driver following, but it was very clear that he was much quicker in the braking zones, and I did actually come back into the setup and make some tweaks in the Porsche just to bring the brake balance a little bit further forward to try and be a bit more aggressive in the braking phases. But I do think that actually worked, and I was very consistent, hitting a 147.7 I think really in last night's session. But we'll have a little look. We'll see what the fastest lap time was. We'll just finish out this video because it is a very close finish. But yeah, if you've got any comments, anything that you'd like to see on the channel with regards to Assetto Corsa Competizione, please do leave a comment in the comment section. And remember just to press that subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a like. It really does help just build more traffic through the channel. Just getting very much out of shape as I tried to get the power down coming off the corner, trying to leave as much room as I could for the guy on the outside but it just manages to pit me at the last turn on the last lap. But definitely the McLaren is definitely quicker here. But we'll have a look at the setups and we'll discuss things further. Some general appreciation between the drivers. I do love Assetto Corsa Competizione. It just brings a different level of driver. Obviously, sometimes you get idiots. You're going to get that in every game, but let's come to the single player. And you can see there, sitting at 147,720 in the Porsche. We'll just have a quick... Yeah, we'll just go straight in. Let's just go straight in and have a look at the setup. Obviously, we've got track conditions 18 degrees, and that's a track temperature of 27 Celsius, optimum conditions. I'll just quickly look at the setup that I'm using. This is the one that I'm using, the test setup. So one of the things I wanted to cover in this video again was I watched a video recently on Jardier's channel, a really informative video all about these meta setups, and I'm going to refer back to them because I think it's a very useful way to start looking at setting up a base setup for the car. So using the toe going absolutely maximum. I have dropped the toe a little bit because the Porsche does rotate very well, being a short wheelbase car. Always try and max out the caster, obviously depending how much weight you want in the wheel, or you could always add maximum caster and then just dial back the force feedback on your wheel or in the game itself. Obviously trying to hit 26.8 psi on all tyres. So obviously you're going to see these are very different tyre PSI settings. Just with the way Monza is a clockwise circuit, all the left hand side of the car gets a lot more use of the tyres, so they get a lot hotter than the inside tyres, so you need less PSI, more PSI to actually reach the desired PSI settings. At the rear of the car, Jardier was on about going more like a neutral on the toe at the rear, maybe a little bit more camber at the rear, but the Porsche really doesn't struggle with rotating at the rear. If anything, it still suffers with rear rotation, especially off throttle. Moving to traction control, obviously if you've got TC2, in most of the cars you're just removing TC2 altogether and just using TC1. Generally I'll flip between TC7 because it's the most amount of traction control to reduce any tyre slippage through hard acceleration. But once I'm off the corner and I want the drive through the corner, or I've got good traction, I'll drop it to TC1 so that the traction control isn't impeding acceleration at all. For me, I can't really go much lower. I don't see the benefit of ABS 1, 2 or 3. Or 1 or 2. It just feels like the car is too aggressive under braking. It's just a personal preference. I guess it depends how you use your brake pedal. Obviously in the tyre sets we're just going to use tyre set 1, and we're going to use brake pads 1 unless we're doing more than an hour's stint. I would use brake pads 2. I just wouldn't ever use brake pads 3 or 4. Generally there's not much wet weather running. Probably use 3 in the wet, 4 you'd never use, so it's just a pointless having it in there for me. But I'm going to use 1, and I've put 25 litres in for a 12-minute session, which is perfect. The front roll bar absolutely maxed out in most cars. The brake balance is going to vary depending on what car you're driving, same with the steering ratio, but we're trying to get the car to feel agile through the steering ratio. Obviously the more you have, the less agile it's going to feel, and you're going to have to put more input into the wheel. And the lower it is, the more twitchy it's going to feel. You're going to make small moves on the steering wheel and it's going to make big moves in the game. We're always going to be maxing out on the brake power as well. And another thing that he suggested is to go flat out the lowest real weights that you can get, just because it gives more grip. The softer the suspension, the more grip you're going to get. But in the Porsche, we really are struggling for rear end grip, despite the rear of the car being as soft as I can get it. Also lowering, this was something that came from Niles New Jackson's channel, where he spends a lot more time going into setting the cars up, and he suggested really bringing the rear down from something like this, just to stop the car almost nose diving as you come into the braking phase of the corner. He was suggesting that when you're off throttle in the Porsche, there's just too much movement because the engine's at the rear and the fuel tank's in the front, and as the fuel comes off, everything starts to change in the car, the balance of the car starts to shift. So he suggested lowering the rear of the car, the range that's allowed to move through the suspension, just to get the car to behave better through off throttle phases. Moving into the dampers, again, Jardier was suggesting just to get rid of the front altogether, just have absolutely maximum at the rear, just all the setups that you go to, just all of them, just on like the right hand side of the car, but for the rest of the car, just maxing out the rebounds and reducing all the bumps. But again, just trying to get the rear of the car much softer in the Porsche. It just doesn't perform like other cars. This is just a setup that I'm trying, but it seems to be getting me comfortably. I won't say comfortably, you're still driving a good lap to be in the 147s, but I'm getting into them. So moving to obviously one of the most important pages of the car setup is, it just determines how much rear downforce we've got. Obviously rear downforce is going to affect the drag of the car. It's going to affect so much, it makes such a difference to the aero balance. But obviously the ride height also makes a difference, and by lifting the front ride height, we're stopping the car rotating as much. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be all the way down, and you're going to be adjusting the rear of the car for the majority of cars. But at Monza, it really is all about straight line speed and a stable car through the corners. One thing that I would suggest you look at when you're choosing to use or thinking about how much rear wing you really want set up on the car, is watching the track, the lap delta on the top left corner when you're going down the straights, because that's where you're getting the most benefit from reducing the rear wing. Obviously I'd love to be running no rear wing, which is the same as in the McLarens or in the Lamborghini, but the rear of the car is so unstable in the Porsche, it just really does struggle. Also trying to get temperature through the front brake, through the front tyres, seems very difficult, especially that front right tyre seems to sit in the 70 degrees area, which we really want it above 80 degrees to get the most amount of grip from the tyres. So we'll take it for a drive around the circuit and we'll just see how this performs. I'm trying to do obviously 3 cars in this video, so swapping between the cars is going to feel very very strange. So yeah, we'll just see how things go. So I'll just turn the volume up. Things to look at on this left hand side when we bring up the MFD. Obviously you'll see that this changes just with buttons on my wheel. Really easy to press them. I love this feature within the game. Obviously lights, we can turn these on and off, but obviously using the keyboard as well, you can just press the L key and it turns the lights on and off. Pressing the S key will cut the engine. The keyboard is really well supported. Obviously we can change to these other images, not that you're going to use them. Loads of other things. I forget how to I think I need to come out of there and just push up on my button to get back to where I want, and then back into the MFD. Obviously B on my wheel brings up the pit limiter. But another thing just down on this, we'll just take the pit limiter off. If we look in the dashboard, obviously we can see all the fuel and everything, but if we use dashboard 2, we can actually see the brake temperatures as well, which is really good to see. Obviously we don't really want them to be getting any higher than between 600 to 800 degrees. But obviously there's a lot of acceleration phases on Monza, and this just allows the brakes to cool, but it also allows in the heating phases when we are braking, that it can distribute some of that heat into the tyres, and we can actually try and get that tyre warm, the front right tyre. It really does struggle. So let's just head out and try and put a lap in. Obviously, generally around lap 3 is where you're going to get the best performance from the tyres. Obviously, I'm conscious of how long this video is going to be and trying to hit a good lap. Braking just after the 150 yard board, trying to clip this inside curb and then throw the car quickly round, traction control 1, get the rear end lighting up on the exit, and we can move back to TC7, staying on this inside line, looking for this orange section on the board just at the right there, braking down into second gear, trying to hook up this inside curb and then fully on the power, then back to TC1, back to TC7, a tentative section of braking, back on the power, TC1 again, back to TC7, braking at the 50 yard board, just let the car roll and then back on TC1 and accelerate using as much of the curb as you can, trying to carry as much momentum as you can. Back to TC7, just braking just after the bridge, down to third gear, picking up all these sleeping policemen, back on the power, very tentative rear, back to TC1, use all that inside curb, you can use a lot more than I just used there, back to TC7, and you can see the front right tyres struggling to get any temperature, still at 66 degrees. Trying to use a lot more of this inside curb, you can see we're sliding around, still in the 25 psi region, which will always get the car sliding around. I might even need to adjust these psi because they're more set up for the lobby that I was racing in yesterday. So we'll do one more lap to see where the psi land, but I don't think we've got enough psi to be honest. Trail braking right to the corner, it doesn't really turn in for me as much. I might even actually put some more toe, because I really would like it to be more reactive through that turn-in phase, quicker changing direction really. It's almost like as you're reaching the top of fourth gear coming out of there, you know you need to be braking. Like I say, it's very tentative through the corners still. No one's going to give you a 147 lap, you're going to have to earn it. Using some of that inside curb, you can see it's just really nice over those curbs if you get it just right, barely even feel the bump, and you can carry all that speed. Trying to keep nice on the apex here. Just using TC1 as the cut starts to rotate the car much more than if you stayed in TC7. So you're kind of using the traction control to your advantage. So I'd prefer a little bit more PSI, but I think we can work with that. Just seems to be a little bit slow coming through there. So we're always trying to carry second gear through this section as well. So I lost a little bit of time because I was on and off throttle. Oh, just running wide there. Again, it just doesn't feel like there's loads of grip through the front of the car, and I'm scared of using that curb. So we'll go for one more lap. So you see, just touching that inside curb just got the car to rotate much better. And a terrible exit off there. Just slowed the car too much using the brake pedal. See if we can keep it into this 147. So you see the rear of the car is still very light. But there we go, a 147 lap in the Porsche. And one of the things that I do hate about Forza as well, you come in to watch a replay and there is no, you cannot see how long the replay is that you've got to watch. You can't, well, you can fast forward, but it's very slow to fast forward. So just look over the lap. I don't know if you'd like to just come in board. See it with the inputs from the wheel. Bring up the hood. So braking, trying to get just after that 150 yard board. It's just a tiny touch past it. It's very hard to even say, but just clipping that inside curb just gets the car to rotate much better. You can see I gained nearly like 5/10 just in the first sector. You can come down to first gear through here. It's a very small difference between speed. Obviously you get to slow the car a little bit more. Very tentative through here. Try not to be too aggressive with the brake pedal. And again here, just slow the car too much, too wide on the apex. Definitely a better lap in the setup. And again, it's just trying to get a good line through here. Ascari is a very difficult section to get perfect. Using some of that inside curb, really just throw the car over those curbs. A lot of the new cars handle that inside curb really well. And then the last parabolica, just trying to get the car tucked in on this inside curb. Some cars prefer to run a little bit further wide, but the Porsche really does like a nice close apex. And across the line for a 147.7. Yes. So let's just return to the garage. Quickly have a look. You can see the tyre temperatures there then. Still not really getting hot enough, but it's very hard to try and induce heat into the tyre. It's just one of those situations with regards to track temperatures. But closing out that brake duct certainly helps add a little bit more temperature into the tyres. One of the things you might want to do is just to add a little bit more toe to the front of the car. Try and get a little bit more responsive, swapping from one side to the other. Yeah, I don't really want to mess with the balance too much. I think I was running 58, which would give the car a little bit more turning response, but again it just increases that instability at the rear of the car. And I just found during the race, during numerous laps, obviously the heat gets into the tyres, you start to get a little bit of tyre wear, and the rear end of the car just start to step away if you're not keeping it in check, you're not being careful on the brake pedal. But yeah, that's the setup for the Porsche. Let's come out of there then. And let's move to the Lamborghini. I did do a livery for it. Yeah, I can't seem to move that. Let's just choose that anyway. So 147.7 again with the Lamborghini. Not sure if this felt harder to get used to. Maybe it's a different driving style from what I'm used to. So as you can see, we're absolutely maxed out on the toe. Not so much maxed out on the caster. I think 12 on the caster, or around 12, 13 seems to be about as much weight as I want in the wheel. Again, using 7 on the traction control. Engine map 1. There's only engine map 8 really on the Porsche. Not so much on the anti-roll bar. Much higher brake balance, much tighter steering ratio, a few subtle adjustments through the suspension, a few softer touches obviously at the rear of the car as well, but we're absolutely using no rear wing. So let's just see if this still feels any good for me. Yeah, we'll just speed out the pit, I think. Swapping from one car to another does often feel very hard to get used to, so we'll see how this feels. I might want to make a few adjustments from driving one car to the next. So I don't recommend doing this. I don't recommend that I'll get the best out of the lap time. Just quickly moving from one to the next. But very similar braking points. Trying to hold second gear again. Still using the traction control, dropping it. Feels like a lot more weight in the wheel. But still feels very stable. Feels almost a little bit less responsive. Well, it is less responsive than the Porsche. But again, it feels more stable. Not as much response, definitely not as much response. Just turning traction control a little bit too early. Still not really got the PSI in the tyres. That was a surprise. So again, as you can see, just switching that traction control too early really does light up the rear of the car. With no rear wing on, it's definitely more temperamental. Yeah, just no response through there at all. Would like that to be quicker. A little bit of understeer. Really did handle that inside curve nicely, didn't it? Feels so much easier to set a car up since I've watched that Jardier video. Just don't spend anywhere near the amount of time that I used to spend on the dampers. Because just putting that rearward just maximum and then soft on the front just gives you a really easy ballpark to start messing with the car. So just waiting to get that power down, waiting to switch to TC1. So a little bit off, 148s, 149s. So we've got a long way to go. Just not turning through there. Just felt I needed to come down. Still got to find half a second really. Let's just see how much we could use that inside curb. Yeah, it unsettles the car a little bit, but a lot less than you thought it would. So getting very close. Try one more. A little bit too early there. Bit too early on the brake pedal. Slowed down a little bit too early for the corner. Had to lift and coast a tiny bit. See if we can carry second gear through here. It's almost a little bit better. I think we're going to struggle to get it there. So we've lost a bit of time there. I'm not going to drama about it too much. Just under. There's definitely a 147 in there. Like I said, jumping from one car to the next is very difficult, just to get the most from the car. Anything that I would change? The rear of the car isn't that unstable, to be honest. Obviously, coming from the Porsche, doesn't feel that bad. You could probably drop that down again just to give you a little bit more front end turning. Maybe even just increase these a little bit just to get a little bit more response from the front of the car. And you could probably even just drop that down a touch. But again, that's the setup that I used. You've seen it firsthand. Let's quickly move on to the McLaren. Try and get this video in under an hour. So we'll jump to my livery. I tend to use the same livery. We'll just look at the track details just so you know the conditions I'm using. I think I come down to first gear as well through. Anyway, I never remember the name of that corner. But obviously we've still got a little bit more we can play with, but feels too much. Again, you can see I'm using 13, 0 on the rear toe, traction control 5 and then to 1. So we'll make a little adjustment before we set off. Again, brake discs 1. Again, just the front of the car is much stiffer. Brake balance has come down a bit, obviously a little bit lower on the steering ratio. Obviously you can see I'm running a little bit more bump stop range at the front, just tends to be more compliant, I think, through the turning phase with the front raised a little bit. And again, just a few subtle changes, but still this predominant rear rebound much higher than the bump. And again, using no rear wing and a little bit of a raised front end. Might be worthwhile dropping that brake duct as well if we just see how the tyres progress. So I'm just going to go into the options menu and into controls, and just using my keyboard to come down. And I'm just going to adjust this to 5 so it's quickly changeable on the traction. If you can see there on the left hand side, we can just move up and down on the wheel. And one thing is nice, obviously you can see in the display on the dashboard, I think you can see the brake temperatures. We can always see the tyres, especially when they're in the green. That's what we want to be seeing, all the tyres. You can see they're all at 70 degrees, so really informative display on the McLaren. For anyone that's, I'll just go into the view display as well. For anyone that sits with a 32-inch monitor right in front of them, these are the settings that I use. 40 degrees field of view, and I do just play around with the distance to make it feel like it's like I'm in the car, and I generally try and get my eye line with the center of the display. So just so you know, that raspy engine really does fly here at Monza, this car. Obviously just get used to the difference. it's so much more responsive through there. And you can just see the effect when you switch traction control in this car. It just sort of eats away at the tarmac. You can feel the acceleration. So I'll try coming through there in second gear as well. So stable, the McLaren. You can see why so many people are lighting up the leaderboards in this car. It's a pity I've jumped from one car to the next. When you spend some time in this car, you really do get used to it. It's the one car through Ascari, really, in the three that we're testing, that you have absolutely no qualms in keeping full throttle. Just doesn't ever worry you at all. As soon as you feel you've got the grip, TC1, and then you're not impeding acceleration at all. So again, you can just see that front right tyre, just 68 degrees. Really would be nice to get that much hotter. Just feels like the rear end wants to come round. Never really tried to carry second gear through that section in the McLaren. Yeah, really attack that curb through Ascari. Try not to be too scared of it. Just keep your foot in. So instantly into the 147s. It's unbelievable, this car here. No time at all to get a good lap time in this car. I'm still counting that. Probably go as far as to say we could lower that front downforce, the front brake ducts. Just to get that front right tyre into a better window temperature wise. See if we can get better through here. So just really attack it. Bit deep. Losing loads on the exit. Four laps and we're hitting a 1:47.5. Just with a little bit of time that we've got left, I'll just drop in here. Just see if we can close out that front brake duct just to give us a little bit more temperature. Can't think of anything else that I'd really want to do. Could always try bringing the brake balance down, see if we can get a little bit more brake performance. Obviously it'll affect going into the corners, taking some of the temperature away from the braking that gets added to the tyres, so maybe not a great move. Really happy with the way it goes through there. It's much more responsive than the other two cars. I generally find this section, getting the car slowed down, you need to brake a tiny section before that. Really is a pleasure to drive the McLaren. Just a little bit out of control there, but you can feel that grip, what's available in the wheel. Something again that's lacking in Forza. The sense of grip when it's there. You know whether you're on the edge of grip or not. It's a brilliant feeling through the wheel. So obviously you can see the front right tyre already into the 71s. Still not the best first sets we've had. Obviously through closing out them brake ducts, slightly increased the PSI. See if we can get a better exit. So you can see just closing out them front brake ducts just to give us a little bit more temperature in the front, but we do need to probably just reduce those PSI a little bit more. A little bit more braking performance into turn 1 this lap. See if we can get this nailed. Nice early shift. Almost into the 146s. But you can see with a little bit more temperature in the front brakes, front tyres, it's just giving us that little bit more performance. So we'll just leave it on that note. 3 cars, 3 setups. All capable of hitting a 147. Obviously the BOP on the McLaren clearly needs looking at. Clearly topping a lot of the timetables, especially here at Monza. I've seen it doing so well at other circuits. Just seems such a stable car, but hopefully you've enjoyed these setups, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any comments, please do put them in the comment section. As always, like and subscribe. Until next time, ciao for now.